Hey everyone, so this week we are going to be comparing and rounding decimals. This is going to be a short week because we are out on Friday, and so the test is actually going to be next Tuesday on Halloween Day. So that's also when this homework is due. And we wanted to go ahead and not give you a ton of problems. So we have 9 each. We have 9 comparing and 9 rounding. And so we are going to look at number 1 in the comparing, and then we're going to look in at number 13, 16, and 21. So let's go ahead and look at number 1. In the comparing part, it says write the symbol less than, equal to, or greater than in each comparison statement. So our goal here is to read this from left to right. Okay, so we read 2/100ths, right, is either less than, greater than, or equal to 2/1000ths. Okay, and there's a couple ways that we can do this. First of all, we can line up our place values, right, with these numbers. And when we do this, we can see, okay, we can check each place value one at a time, right? I'm going to use blue. We can check the ones place. They're both 0, so they are equal. We can check the 10th place. They're both 0, so they are equal. And we check the 100th place. Oh, there's a 2 and a 0, so the 2 is greater than the 0, right? And so that means that 2/100ths, this one over here, 2/100ths, must be greater than 2/1000ths. Okay, because that place value, as you move from left to right, as you move from the ones to the tenths to the hundredths to the thousandths, right, we find in the 100th place that they are different. And that's unlike the ones in the tenths place where they're equal, right? 0 and 0, right? 0, 0, 0, 0. But this is 2, 0. So the 2 is greater than 0. And so with that lets us know that 2/100ths is going to be greater than 2/1000ths. Okay, and I know that looks like a big jumbled mess, but really all you need to know is whenever you write it out in place value like that, you line up the place values. You have 0.02, 0.002, right? Because that's 2/100ths and 2/1000ths. You just move one place value at a time until you find a difference, and whichever one is greater, that number, that whole decimal number, is going to be greater than the other. So 2/100ths is greater than 2/1000ths. And so this is the symbol that we must use. And so you guys will finish up 2 through 9 on the comparing. And then we're going to look at number 13, 16, and 21, just because they are different place values, right? We're looking at the tenths, the hundredths, and the whole number. And one thing that you guys may already know about rounding is that if I have 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, right, I know that they're going to tell me to round down, right? But then if I have anything that's 5 or more, like 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, those tell me that I'm going to round up, right? For example, if I have a number line and I had 1 right here, and I have 2 here, right? The halfway point is going to be what? 1.5 or 1.5, right? And so anything that falls between 1 and 1.5, like if I had 1.4, that 4 is going to tell me that it's closer to 1 than it is 2, right? So in the same way, if I had like 1.7, that's closer to 2 than it is to 1. Okay, I'm going to erase the number line. If you need to go back and pause it, you can. I just don't want to confuse anyone. So if we look at 13, it says that we are rounding each decimal to the nearest tenth. So my first step, what I like to do is underline my tenths place. If I'm rounding to the tenths, I'm going to underline my tenths place, right? And now, my next step I'm going to do in blue, I look to the one place to the right. So my tenths place is what I'm rounding. I look one place to the right. That number is an 8. And if I look back at what I just wrote a minute ago, anything that's 4 or less is going to round down. It's going to keep my tenths place the same, and then everything behind it becomes a 0. But if the number is 5 or above, which in our case it's what? 8, right? It's going to tell me to round up. So if I look at this, I have an 8, and then it tells my 7 to round up. So instead of 1.7, it'll be 1.8. And then everything behind that really becomes a 0. So what this is really saying, if I have a number line again, okay, I have 1.7, and then here I have 1.8. Okay, now 1.75 would be my middle, right, my very dead center, right? But this is 1.78, so it's going to end up here. And it's closer to 1.8, which is my final answer, right, 1 8/10, than it is to 1.7 or 1 7/10. So if we're rounding to the nearest tenth, then my nearest tenth is going to be 1.8, or 1 8/10. Okay, so that is rounded to the nearest tenth. My final answer would be 1 8/10. So you can circle that really big, okay? Or actually, you know what would be even better? Write it on the line that they give you. Okay, so 16 says round each decimal to the nearest hundredth. So instead of underlining the tenths place, we're going to underline the hundredths place, which in this case is an 8. Okay, and then the next step, we're going to look one place to the right. And whenever we look one place to the right, we're looking at the thousandths place. Now that number is a 6, right? That number is a 6. And when we look back, if it's a 6, that means that it's 5 or more, right? So we are rounding up, okay? So that tells me if this is a 6, if the number to the right is a 6, it tells me to round that 8 up 1. So my new number becomes 7 69/100ths. And then that 6 really becomes 0, but you do not have to include that. Your final answer can be 7 69/100ths. So we've rounded to the nearest hundredth place. And so again, if I had a number line on this just to show you, if I had 7.69 and then I had 7.68, my dead center would be 7.685. So the number on 16 says 7.686. So that falls right here, 7.686, or 7 686 thousandths is really how we read that number, right? And that tells me that this number is closer to 7 69/100ths than it is 7 68/100ths. So my answer is 7 69/100ths, because that number that we started with, 7 686 thousandths, is closer to 7 69/100ths. Okay, and then the final problem that we're going to do on this video is rounding each decimal to the nearest whole number. Okay, so let's look at number 21. We're rounding to the whole number, so I'm going to underline my whole number. And when it says whole number, you're really rounding to the ones place. Okay, so I'm going to underline my ones place. My next step is to look one place to the right, and that is a 4 in the tenths place, right? And so if I look one more time at my numbers over here, 4 falls under 5, so it's below 5. That tells me that we are not rounding up. We are going to keep that number the same. And really what it means by rounding down, whenever I said that earlier, rounding down, if my number line is right here and I have if I have 2 and then I have 1, my dead middle is going to be 1.5 or 1.5, right? 1 5/10. Now this number falls right here, 1 47/100ths. So it's closer to 1 than it is 2. So our number will actually round down to 1. That 1 does not change. The 1 itself does not go down to a 0. But this number right here is closer to 1. So this is the rounding down part. We round down to 1 instead of rounding up to the 2, because it's closer to round to the 1. Okay, and that's all for this video. I want you guys to practice with this homework, and if it's difficult, just ask your teacher for help. We're very happy to help you. You can watch this video over and over if you need to, and I know what you're thinking, the superhero, right? And so, if you will, write down Spider-Man on a piece of paper with your name on it and hand it to your teacher or me, and we will give you 5 dojo points because Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. I hope you guys have an awesome week. See ya.